Leafs Converts Hockey World, what's going on? This is the Leafs Convo podcast. I'm Norman James, your host. It is great to be with you guys. I've missed you. It seems like it's been forever since we last collabed for some Leafs discussion, and in terms of the world of the Leafs Convo and everything we do, it really has. 5 days. But the wait is over. My podcast partner in crime, my Buffalo brethren, Michael Piagello, is standing by. He's chomping at the bit to weigh in on a lot of Leafs-related stuff. The Buds being amazing, the Buds being not so amazing. What's happening with William Nylander as the deadline for him to play this season quickly approaches. There's Garrett Sparks. Should he really be the backup of the Maple Brothers? Plus, we get to your Twitter questions. This episode is going to be epic because we owe it to you. We've been off for a while. Now we are back in business. Mike's ready to go. I'm ready to go. I know you are too. So what do you say? Let's pod. The Leafs Convo starts right now. Long time no talk, my friend.
Good morning, Norman. Yeah, it's been a while. How are you?
Not too bad. After that Leafs drubbing of New Jersey on Friday, I was thinking, you and I are going to go on about how this team is resurrected. It's beginning to score in bunches again. It's going to begin to dominate. And then after all the pomp and circumstance of the Hall of Fame game and the remembrance ceremony, they go into Boston and they get slaughtered. So how do you want to set the narrative for this conversation?
Well, I mean, let's take the New Jersey game first. It was unusual in the sense that they got half of their production from their third and fourth line, which for most of the year they've been carried by their core group. And other than they got goals from Tavares and Kadri, but Andreas Janssen scores his first of the year. Connor Brown scores. Tyler Innes scores. They get contributions throughout the lineup. Per Lindholm has a couple of assists. Ron Hainsey has a couple of assists. It was just a good, thorough overall effort against a team. And that's the thing, a team that is struggling right now in New Jersey. Now they scored their season high at home, 6 goals, and now they're .500 at home, which is a lot better than they were a little while ago. But I think that the shine on that game is sort of taken off by a dreadful performance in Boston, where they had 20 shots in the first period and could not beat Jarro Halak. And then Patrice Bergeron, the Leaf killer, scores late in the first period, and the air was sort of let out of the balloon. And, as I said in my column yesterday, the Leafs cannot beat the Bruins. When the Bruins put up that Bergeron, Pasternak, Marchand line, they have to find an answer. Otherwise, if they match up with them in the first round, in spite of all of Boston's failings and all of Boston's idiosyncrasies, I would pick the Bruins, because the Leafs have not proved that they can shut down that line, and that's the important thing when they face Boston.
This is the Leafs Convo. Norman James along with Mike Piagello. About 70% of our listenership is unsubscribed, but we know you come back frequently to listen. Do us a favor. Hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel, please. We do you favors. We make you pull your hair out. We are here for you with our conversation several times a week. We're dedicated to it. We're committed to it, especially for this season. Just do us a favor. We're entering the giving season. Hit the subscribe button. Help us get our subscribership up to around 2,000. Hopefully by December. It would mean a lot to us. And you can always unsubscribe as you go along. Mike, what would you say the need is to deal with this Bergeron line? Is it skill? Because it feels to me like, this Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak line is ready to take on any sort of skill that comes its way. And there's a confidence in that trio's play that is difficult to match, especially when you have a younger set of players going up against them from the Maple Leafs. Mm-hmm. What do you need to nip these guys in the bud and basically find a tonic to match, this Boston line that not only beats the Leafs on the score sheet, but mentally and spiritually has the Leafs beaten before the puck is dropped?
Well, I mean, first of all, and I pointed this out yesterday that, granted, Austin Matthews is out of the lineup. They don't have the services of William Nylander, who scored 60 points 2 years in a row. And Freddie Anderson was, resting in the second of back-to-back, and Garrett Sparks was playing. Now, we'll talk about that in a minute. But Boston was also without probably arguably their best defenseman in Charlie McAvoy. And Tuukka Rask was on a leave of absence, so they were playing against Jaro Halak. So both teams were sort of at a disadvantage and didn't have their best lineup. But even in that case, Bergeron, Pasternak, and Marchand combined for 4 of the 5 goals. I mean, the 4 most meaningful of the 5 goals. So, I mean, I think one thing is that Mike Babcock, when it comes to playoff time, is going to have to match fire with fire. Now, my solution was, and they've used this combo before during the regular season at certain times, where they've moved Kadri to the wing with Tavares and Marner. Match fire with fire. Put a line out there. Kadri can get underneath people's skins just like Marchand can. You match up Tavares to Bergeron. You match up Marner to Pasternak. You fight fire with fire, and that might work. And you have the advantage of, your number 2 center is Matthews. And I'm not saying second line in terms of ranking. I'm just saying, if the Tavares line is matching up head-to-head against Bergeron, then your second line is Matthews matching up against David Krejci, and Matthews should win that battle. So I think that's what has to be done. Obviously, the Leafs, between now and the deadline, with all the cap space that they have, they're going to make acquisitions. They're going to upgrade in certain areas. So I think that the team that you see right now is not the team that you're going to see in March and in the playoffs. But Babcock is going to have to find a solution to matching up against that big line. And if he doesn't, then I think he's going to take some heat if they match up and lose to the Bruins again.
Look, beating the Bruins and moving forward, not only in the season, because they'd like to finish ahead of the Bruins in the Atlantic Division, but in the playoffs as well. It's a hurdle. It's one of the main challenges, one of the milestones that needs to be overcome as this team journeys towards what could conceivably be a Stanley Cup final appearance, the first since 1967. But this whole season can't be predicated on whether they beat the Bruins. This Leafs team has a lot to accomplish and can do a lot of incredible things. They can't perceive the Bruins to be, and fans especially can't feel like the Bruins are this reaper. It's not the be-all and end-all. So this game on Saturday, you could say that the Leafs were at a disadvantage anyhow. The odds were they were going to lose on the road, right, Mike? They were 6-0 already. They shellacked the Devils in this Friday game that had the pomp and circumstance. And traditionally these games were situated on a Saturday, so the Leafs would either come off the road and come home. It was the other way around, so it just felt a little weird. I don't look at this loss to the Bruins on Saturday like here we go again. It's just a continuation of the failure against the Bruins, especially in Boston. It was a weirdly placed game. Now it's just out onto the West Coast. The Kings, the Sharks, the Ducks continue their success on the road and pick up points.
Well, I think Babcock was of the mindset that you're sort of reflecting. It's like this was no special game. This was 1 out of 82. He didn't deviate from the back-to-back usual SOP when it comes to back-to-back starts. He goes Anderson at home in the first game, and the backup Sparks in Boston. Now, like I said, I mean, I had a problem with the way Sparks played. He's played 3 games, and you got to cut him a little bit of slack because he has not played before Saturday. He didn't play in almost a month, and there will be more back-to-backs this month than there were last month. But he's not getting the work that a normal backup does. He's probably going to play, anywhere from 16 to 20 games this year. And so far in 3 games, he's played badly in 2 and good in 1. And that's not, that's not a trend that I think Mike Babcock will accept for much longer. If his next game, which will probably be in one of the back-to-backs, either Thursday or Friday in California, if he plays badly in that one, that's around the time that he lost confidence with Jonas Enroth a couple years ago. But the problem is that they really have no answer right now other than Sparks, because McElhinney is in Carolina and Pickard is in Philadelphia. So, I mean, they're probably going to stick with him, but I think that, Babcock, in terms of his trust level for Sparks, will start to take a hit And they may have already started to take a hit, because if you look at the comments after the game, he's like, I have to look at the tape. And that's like the Buffalo Bills coach talking about Nathan Peterman. It's like, I have to look at the tape. No, you don't. You just watch the game and you see that the guy sucked. So I mean, and I'm not saying that Garrett Sparks sucks, but I'm saying, that so far in 3 games, 2 of the 3 he has played badly. And Mike Babcock's patience when it comes to backup goaltenders is very short.
I don't like what's going on these head games, this Cold War with Sparks. The way he's suggesting that Sparks isn't living up to the challenge when putting Sparks in a situation that's pretty difficult. Like I still think that Garrett Sparks is the type of goalie who would be perfect to be the, maybe not centerpiece, but the backstop for a young team in the NHL somewhere, and give the guy a chance to play 55, 60 games and let him go through the ups and downs and find his rhythm. The role he's in right now is a role that someone like Curtis McElhinney should be in. It's tough for this kid because he wants to get out there, he wants to play, and he's an A type. He wears his heart on his sleeve. When he doesn't do well, he feels it. It hurts, and he doesn't have enough pedigree in the NHL to lean on or to draw upon when things go bad. And not only that, he feels like he's under pressure, having to put on a show for a coach that likes him, but doesn't feel like, there's a synergy there, or there's there's a bond there. So I don't like the fact that Garrett Sparks is put in a situation to start in Boston when he probably could have started against the Devils at home, and the outcome would have been probably the same or close to it, and it would have been a positive result for Sparks, allowing him to build upon it. But this is why he gets paid the big money. This is a difficult situation for him to be in, and I hope that he and Mike Babcock have a dialogue going, so that there's an understanding in regards to the process that is being laid out right now. Because if there's no dialogue, and there's no coaching, and there's no mentorship, and there's no understanding, this relationship can, really veer in different directions.
Babcock is a very results-oriented guy. If you perform for him, if you do what he wants, he will back you. He likes Par Lindholm. He likes the work ethic. He likes Ozaganov. He likes what he provides. There are certain players that, okay, they may not be the greatest, but he fits what Babcock's goal is, and he goes with that. He backs them. With Sparks, this is the funny thing. I asked him at training camp, the first day of training camp, what adjustment are you making, from the mindset, the mental and physical mindset of being a, starter who's going to start 40, 50 games a year for the Marlies, to somebody who may not play, may play once or twice a month as a backup in the NHL. And he said, no adjustment. And so, I mean, I was sort of taken aback by that, and wrote that quote in my column on Hockey Buzz. And then on Saturday after the game, I think he's come to the realization that, yes, there is an adjustment. Yes, you have to adjust your mindset to be able to not be in the game, to be just practicing against players, and then finally getting your opportunity. It's a tough job, and it takes veteran guys a long time to adjust to it. And that's the thing. I mean, the difference between this team winning the Atlantic Division, finishing second or finishing third or finishing in a wild card, is the points that they get when Frederik Andersen is not in the lineup. And if they have to play him 65 to 70 games because their backup is not dependable, that is a failing of the organization.
Curtis McElhinney should be the backup. Garrett Sparks is, I think, an NHL level goaltender. He'll get there. He's just in the wrong role. He's not. I mean, he can do it physically, but mentally, I don't think he's the right guy for it. He's not going to play enough. He's not going to get into a rhythm. It's going to be a lot different than what he was used to last year, just winning game after game with the Marlies, just being successful, feeling empowered, feeling emboldened. And now he's going to feel relatively isolated. Imagine not playing for such a long time, feeling like you're the forgotten man on the roster, and then thrown to the wolves and you lose. I hope they have team psychologist who can help a guy like that get through it, because I want to see a guy like that succeed. I don't like the position he's in, considering the investment they've put in to Garrett Sparks as an institutional guy. They want to give him the chance. I honestly feel like it was an error in judgment on management's part, and they're going to have to do something to fix it. This is the Leafs Convo. I'm Norman James, along with Mike Augello. I put out some feelers on Twitter before we started recording this podcast, asking you if you wanted to have any Leafy things addressed, if you had any Leafs questions. Of course, William Nylander comes to mind. This is a really good one from Joe_17. Never seen him before. He's got a great red beard. He's got glasses like I do, and it seems like he loves his Maple Leafs. So he tweets, and this is from him, Leafs Nylander options ranked best to worst. So the best signs an 8-year deal with the Leafs under $7 million. Signs number 2 signs a 3-year bridge at $4.5 million. Number 3 signs 8 years at $8 million. Number 4 traded for young stud right-hand defenseman with term. Number 5 traded for a package including good young right defenseman. Sits a full year is the 6th ranked thing on Joe's list. And number 7, I believe it is, traded for a package of picks and prospects. So the question he's asking us, what order would you rank them, Michael?
Well, I think the worst option is traded for a package of picks and prospects, because that provides no help for the Leafs right away unless they flip the picks and prospects to another organization for the players that they need. And then that's adding one difficult step to another difficult step. So I think that's the worst option. I actually think the second worst option is the 8 years at $8 million. He's not an $8 million player. He never has shown that he's an $8 million player as of yet. That you're doing it on faith. And there are other players out there, and we point to the David Pastrnak deal, where, now after a year where he scores, 40 goals or close to it, and does great guns in the playoffs last year and is leading the Bruins in goals this year after a hat trick against the Leafs, he's worth the $6.6 million that he's being paid right now. But at the time that they signed that contract, a lot of people didn't think he was worth that. Do I think Nylander is worth $8 million? No, he might be in the future, but he has not earned that. So I think that's the second worst. Sits the full year. I mean, I think that's the most unlikely of the scenarios, but in the end, the Leafs would still retain Nylander. They would still retain him as an asset that they could trade or sign eventually, but it's sort of a waste. It's a 22-year-old guy that, is not playing. But then, like most of the other options, I'd say are sort of equal. But the problem is that the two top ones that Joe listed, signing 8 years for under $7 million, that's not happening because it would have happened already.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I mean, Nylander's camp has made it clear that if it's a long-term deal, that he wants over $8 million. So he wants a Draisaitl deal. And there's the only way I think he takes under $7 million is on a shorter-term deal, maybe 5 or 6 years, or on a bridge. I mean, they were talking about this on Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday, and Nick Kypreos floated the idea of a 3-year bridge at $6 million. That's the same AAV as Panarin on a bridge deal. And again, William Nylander is very good. He is not Artemi Panarin. He is not David Pastrnak. Mm-hmm. So he does not deserve the amount. The comparables are nowhere close. So that's where the situation is right now. And with what was reported by Elliot Friedman on Saturday, which has been out there for a little while, that the Leafs are telling teams that are interested in Nylander to, tell us who you won't trade and put up your best offer. You're now a little under 3 weeks from the December 1st deadline. The Leafs are getting their house in order. That's not saying that it isn't possible that they could sign Nylander to a contract, but they're preparing for all eventualities. And if they get a deal that gives them, 1 or 2 pieces that they think is equal to what Nylander can provide, I think Kyle Dubas is pulling the trigger.
Yeah, why not? Team Nylander and Team Maple Leafs wanted to be together truly, it would have happened by now. Nylander's camp thinks that William Nylander is a marquee player and should be paid accordingly. The Maple Leafs have many marquee players, and while William Nylander could be the top dog on a dozen other teams across the NHL. He's not the top dog in Toronto, and he cannot be paid like he's the top dog. The salary cap restricts that because the Leafs have guys who are higher on the pecking order who need to be paid and will 100% be paid more than what Nylander is demanding, and he's demanding a lot of money. John Villella, do you think the Leafs would offer Nylander the same percentage of the cap that Ehlers and Pasternak got? Dollar figure might be higher because the cap has gone up since those guys signed. John Villella, a loyal listener to the Leafs Convo, a Leafs convert, and he likes the fact that I could pronounce his last name. Buddy, I worked in broadcasting for 16 years. I'm a master at name pronunciations, right? Mike Augeo?
Nice one. Well, I have to say this. The report on Saturday, and Kiprio said that the Leafs had not offered this yet, but it seems clear that they would offer Nylander a deal with the same percentage of cap as Ehlers and maybe go up to the Pasternak level, which is 6.6. But that, again, with the cap going up, it's not the same percentage that Pasternak was being offered. So it seems that the Leafs that's their final line of demarcation. We'll pay you 6.5. We'll pay you 6.6, but we're not paying you 7. And that's on a 6-year deal. This is not on an 8-year deal. So, because at that point, if they get him on a long-term contract at a number that's not hideous, if eventually they want to move him down the line, there's no trade restriction, and the salary is very amenable to other teams. If they want to keep him and the deal is good, then everything is great. But there's no security there for Nylander, and that's why I think he's aiming for this amount that might be tough for the Leafs to move. And the Leafs can't operate that way. They have Nylander, they have Marner, they have Matthews to pay, and he may very well be a franchise player or a star player, but he hasn't shown that yet, separated from Austin Matthews. He's scored 3 goals in 20 games without Matthews as his center. And that's not great. And I think he has to prove that he is independently a really good player to be worth what he is asking for as a restricted free agent. So again, I think that if there is a deal to be made in terms of a contract, it's more than likely going to be a bridge. I cannot see the Leafs signing him for $6 million on a bridge deal, because that's really over the top, I believe. And where I see it going here is if he doesn't take a bridge, he's going to get traded. But it all depends on the offers that the Leafs get. If they get something that they deem to be equal in value, I think they'll do it. Kyle Dubas has a lot riding on this whole situation, and he is not going to do a Peter Chiarelli and trade Taylor Hall for Adam Larson. He has got to get himself a better, more evenly distributed a deal for Nylander. Otherwise, he is on the hot seat.
We could go on and on. We should wrap up here in a moment. This is the Leafs Convo. Norman James along with Mike Augello. Thank you so much for your listenership, your support. We appreciate it, whether it's on a podcast platform of your choice or on our YouTube channel. By the way, please subscribe. 70% of our listeners are unsubscribed on YouTube, but you keep coming back. Just hit subscribe. Do us a favor. Try us out for a while.
It's one click, damn it. Come on, do it.
Absolutely. How far in advance do you think the Leafs and their management team were thinking about William Nylander and projecting the kinds of issues they would encounter? Like, how far ahead? Because where I'm going with this is, why would they have signed John Tavares to $11 million per season, knowing that he's taking up a lot of the money that would be available to pay Nylander and maybe throw a couple of extra bones his way?
The Leafs without Nylander and with Tavares are a better team. So when you slot in who is the top 5, I've heard this on the radio, who the top 5 most valuable players on the Leafs right now, including Nylander. And Nylander is not in the top 5. It's Tavares and Matthews, it's Marner, it's Freddie Anderson, it's Morgan Riley, and Nylander is 6th. When you're talking about a player who is 6th or lower, in terms of his leverage, in terms
Hold on, Mike. Hold on. I know people don't like when I cut you off, and I don't do it much. It's your recency bias is showing, Mike. Tavares is playing. Nylander's not. You're forgetting how good he is.
I have a very good memory, Norman. I think the outlook. I think Leaf management is a little surprised that it's gone this far. I know that I heard Darren Drager this morning say, I thought there would be an impasse, but I didn't think it would last till the middle of November. And I think the Leaf, management, they saw Nylander based on 260-point seasons, based on the fact that he more than likely was not going to get an offer sheet from anybody, that he was in a situation where they weren't going to lowball him, and I don't think they have lowballed him, but based on what the Nylander camp is looking for, they can perceive that the Leafs are lowballing them. And if they want to get paid, they can get paid in Carolina. They can get paid in Anaheim or other places. They're not going to get paid $8 million from the Leafs when it comes to Matthews being signed, when it comes to Marner being signed. They need to keep their powder dry for those two players. And if Nylander outprices himself, then the job of Kyle Dubas is to find the best return and get the most pieces back for a very good player.
So we're encroaching the deadline. What happens with Nylander, the Maple Leafs, and whatever?
I don't see the Leafs coming off what they've offered so far. I don't think if a long-term deal gets agreed to, it's not going to be over $7 million, because that would show that Dubas got pushed around, and that's a danger sign for Matthews and Marner's agent to take advantage of a young GM. So I don't think that's going to happen. Right now I think it's 50-50, and maybe the odds are even higher that he gets traded. It all depends on what other teams offer. If it's Brett Pesce for William Nylander, I don't think the deal is getting done. If it's Brett Pesce and something else really good, then I think that deal will get done. And there are other teams out there like Anaheim and Philadelphia who have depth on defense that they can afford to give up a young defenseman and have other forwards as well. So I think it's going to be, if the deal happens, it's going to be a multiplayer deal. It's not just going to be one for one. And, again, then at that point, then the criticism or patting on the back of Kyle Dubas will begin, because the result of the trade will depend. I think that will have a lot in terms of Dubas's reputation.
How about William Nylander for Joe Pesci and two Utes?
Ralph Macchio is not a throw-in.
Boreal Ninja. Is Josh Levo a replacement level player at this point?
Well, I don't know, replacement level. I mean, he's like a 13th forward right now on a team that's carrying 12 forwards. Matthews is out and they haven't called up anybody. They called up Trevor Moore last week and then sent him back down, and they're on the road with 12 forwards, which I thought they would call up somebody in case somebody gets sick or in case somebody gets injured. And I guess they can do that, and just get somebody on a plane. But I mean, he's played okay. He's played a lot better than he has in the past. He's actually playing. So there's, that's a step in the right direction for him. But has he made a big difference? Not really. I think actually of the bottom line, of the fourth line, the guy who's performed the best has been Tyler Ennis. He was one of the best players on the ice against New Jersey on Friday, and was hustling and provides a little bit of a spark. Sometimes Levo is noticeable, sometimes he's not, and Freddie Gauthier is a ghost. So I think that there can be some upgrades on that fourth line, and there are players on the Marlies currently that I think the Leafs are just waiting to potentially call them up in the second half, and they're letting them get a lot of work down in the minors. But Josh Levo, I like him, but I don't know whether he's ever going to be a difference maker in the NHL.
Yeah, Michael, this team is nearing elite status if it's not there already. And if you can't contribute to this team and help it maintain a high level of play, if not make it better, then you shouldn't be there, because this team has plenty of options, whether on the NHL roster or coming up through the AHL pipeline. Kyle Outridge just put together a nice little profile on Trevor Moore. Mike Babcock likes those guys who are working hard and producing and knocking at the door and are hungry for that opportunity.
Babcock liked the way that Trevor Moore played in training camp. He scored 8 goals in 10 games with the Marlies. He deserved the call up, and it ended up being basically a boost to his paycheck, because when he gets called up to the NHL, he gets the NHL salary, and when he goes back to the AHL, he gets the $70,000 AHL salary. So he didn't play a game, but he got a little bonus by getting called up for a few days. But I think he deserves to get a look. And I think if he continues to score like he has early in the season with the Marlies, I think he's going to deserve a look. I think that Mason Marchment, who's been scoring and mixing it up, and I think is a perfect fourth line energy guy, Carl Grundstrom, and Dmytro Timashov, Pierre Engvall. There's a lot of depth, and that's all on the left wing where the Leafs are weak. So I think that these guys could be in the mix in the second half, and if not in the second half, then next year when there are probably going to be a few openings.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. Honestly, I really don't care if Nylander comes back. It's not a personal thing. I just want to see whatever happens with this situation result in an improvement for the Maple Leafs. I'd love to see William Nylander, his career take off if he's the man somewhere else and goes on to, become one of the top 10 players in the league. If it's somewhere else and the Leafs were able to bring back assets to improve where they are now, then so be it. That's the way it is. You can't keep everybody in this day and age, especially with that salary cap. Michael, any last words? We got to go.
Yep. I think the level of frustration amongst the fan base. I mean, there are fans out there who really like William Nylander as a player. There are fans out there that are not big fans. I think the level of frustration on both sides are at the same level. They want a resolution one way or the other. Let's get it done. But the management is not going to do that until they find either the best deal in a contract or the best deal in a trade. So we have less than 3 weeks to wait. I'm sure there's going to be a resolution before then.
You can tell we haven't done anything in quite a while. It's a couple of BFFs just chatting away. And where'd the time go? It's almost been like 40 minutes. Gotta go, bro.
Thanks, Norman.
That's a wrap for this edition of the Leafs Convo podcast. I told you it was going to be a long one. We got to a ton of stuff. What do you think? Have your say inside the YouTube comment section. While you're on the YouTube channel, hit subscribe. The button's easy to reach. It's easy to find. Hit it. Stay a while. Give us a shot. I'm confident you're going to remain a Leafs convert when you do. You can also add us on Twitter, at Mike and Buffalo, at Norman James TLC. We're always looking for your feedback. And I tell you what, we're not going to wait as long as we just did to do the next edition of the Leafs Convo podcast. Mark my words, because I know it's important in your life. For Michael P.A., I'm Norman J. We'll talk to you soon. The Leafs Convo is out.